Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's home targeted in drone attack from Lebanon. His office says Netanyahu is safe, no casualties either. G7 defense ministers begin talks in Naples, a NATO base amid escalating tensions in West Asia, and as Ukraine braces for another winter in war. President Vladimir Putin says Russia wants lasting peace in Ukraine, appreciates PM Modi's concern over the Ukraine crisis. And in US presidential campaign, Trump questions Harris's mental smartness for the job. Former President Obama weighs in, calling Trump older and loonier. A drone was launched towards Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's home in the northern Israeli town of Caesarea as Hezbollah launched strikes on Israel from Lebanon. Netanyahu's spokesman said that the PM and his wife were not in the vicinity and there were no casualties. Earlier, the Israeli military said that a drone launched from Lebanon hit a building. Two more drones that crossed into Israeli territory were intercepted. Hezbollah said that it fired rockets at a military base near Haifa in northern Israel. The city remained on high alert, warning of more rocket launches from Lebanon. The Israeli army has said that 55 rockets were launched from Lebanon since the Saturday morning toward Haifa and other northern Israeli cities. Some rockets were intercepted by the Iron Dome air defense system and others fell in open areas. Earlier, Hezbollah said that it was moving to a new and escalating phase in its conflict with Israel after the killing of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. Lebanon has said that 2 people were killed in an Israeli strike in country's Jonia city in the first attack on the area since Hezbollah and Israel started trading fire last year. The strike happened on the highway connecting Beirut to the country's north. Jonia is located in one of Lebanon's most vital connectivity routes. Israel ramped up its strikes on Lebanon late last month. US President Joe Biden has said there is a possibility of working towards a ceasefire in Lebanon, but it will be harder in Gaza. Speaking to reporters in Berlin, where he met with leaders of Germany, France and the United Kingdom, Biden assessed the efforts to end the multi-area conflict in West Asia. Biden also told reporters he has an understanding of how and when Israel will respond to the missile attacks by Iran.
There's an opportunity, in my view, and my colleagues agree, that we can probably deal with Israel and Iran in a way that ends the conflict for a while. It ends the conflict. In other words, it stops the back and forth. We think that there's a possibility of working for a ceasefire in Lebanon, and it's going to be harder in Gaza, but we agree that there has to be an outcome. What happens the day after?
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is meeting Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Istanbul on Saturday to discuss West Asia and crisis and migration. Scholz arrived in Istanbul after meeting US President Joe Biden and leaders of France and Britain in Berlin on Friday. This diplomatic visit aims to find solutions to pressing regional issues. For many years now, Germany has been Turkey's most important trading partner and the largest foreign investor. More than 3 million people with Turkish roots live in Germany. According to Turkish sources, there is movement in Germany regarding Turkey's desired purchase of Eurofighter jets. Turkey intends to boost its defense arsenal with 40 Eurofighters. Germany is involved in their production. Moving on, Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed gratitude to India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his concern over the Ukraine conflict and efforts towards paving a solution. PM Modi has underlined the importance of dialogue and diplomacy as well as sincere and practical engagement between all stakeholders to achieve an abiding and peaceful resolution of the conflict.
We are thinking about our own military, our own servicemen and our own equipment, and when we spare a thought for our people, we think about how to provide peace and peace by peaceful means inter alia. This is the difference. Our mediation is wanted. We will gladly work with the colleagues. Same refers to our friends. In particular, I mean the Prime Minister Modi. While talking with His Excellency over the phone, each time he raises this matter and expresses his considerations, and we are grateful to him for that.
In an interaction with senior journalists from BRICS countries, President Putin echoed Prime Minister Narendra Modi's stance on BRICS that the grouping is not anti-Western, but rather non-Western.
BRICS never was meant to against anyone. The Indian Prime Minister put it aptly of late. He has said that BRICS is not an anti-Western group, it's just a non-Western group. The BRICS does not counterpose itself to anyone. It is a group of nations that work in concert and have shared values and shared goals of development and take each other's interests.
Russia is hosting the upcoming BRICS summit in Kazan from October 22-24, and PM Modi will visit Russia to attend the 16th BRICS summit at the invitation of President Putin. The Kremlin said it welcomes German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's openness to talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, adding Moscow hasn't yet received any proposals for such talks. Russia's reaction comes after Scholz told lawmakers on 16th of October in Berlin that he is willing to talk to President Putin about a just peace in Ukraine. Scholz said no decisions would be made without the input of Ukraine and other Western allies. In recent weeks, German media have reported on an increased openness from Scholz to speak to Putin about an end to the full-scale war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov claimed that President Joe Biden's remarks on US-Russia nuclear arms talks were politically motivated, specifically to boost Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. Russia and Ukraine carried out a new exchange of prisoners of war on Friday, each side bringing home 95 prisoners in an agreement in which the United Arab Emirates acted as mediator. Russia's defense ministry said that returning Russian service members were undergoing medical checks in Belarus. A Russian military video also showed smiling soldiers boarding buses. A video showed some men wrapping in blue and yellow Ukrainian flag, getting off a bus well after dark and being embraced by loved ones. Ukrainian Parliament's Commissioner for Human Rights said a total of 3,767 prisoners had returned home till now. The last known prisoner swap involving 103 prisoners from each side took place in September. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot arrived in Kiev on Saturday to meet with Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga. In a joint press conference, Ukraine's Foreign Minister called the involvement of North Korean troops in the Russian invasion of Ukraine a huge escalation risk.
This is a huge risk of further escalation of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. It's a huge risk as it further intensifies and lets the war outgrow its current limits and territorial borders.
Meanwhile, the French Foreign Minister said that North Korea's support for Russia would bring the conflict into an additional escalation stage.
North Korea's support for the Russian war effort has been known for a long time. it would nevertheless be extremely serious because it would bring the conflict into a new stage, an additional escalation stage.
Defense minister from the world's 7 leading economies gathered in Italy's Naples on Saturday amid escalating tensions in West Asia and mounting conflict between Russia and Ukraine. On the occasion of the first ever ministerial meeting focused on defense, Italian defense minister called it an extraordinary moment.
Today marks an extraordinary moment as we are about to commence for the first time the G7 defense meeting. For nearly 50 years, the Group of Seven have gathered to address geopolitical, social, and economic challenges of global importance. But until today, the opportunity to meet in this format and the need to discuss in depth on defense and security matters have never been taken into consideration.
The Italian defense minister emphasized that Russian-Ukraine conflict and the critical situation in West Asia highlight a deteriorated security framework.
Brutal Russian aggression in Ukraine and the indeed critical situation in Middle East, combined with the profound instability of sub-Saharan Africa and the increasing tension in the Indo-Pacific region, highlight a deteriorated security framework with forecasts for the near future that cannot be positive.
The World Trade Organization will support and participate in the COP29 summit in Baku, Azerbaijan through various trade-focused events. The WTO in statement said the Director General will participate in the World Leaders Climate Action Summit on November 12 and 13, as well as several high-level events planned at COP29 Trade and Investment House and other venues. A dedicated COP29 portal on the WTO website will provide information on the events. Additionally, several publications will also be launched by the Secretariat and partners during COP29. Several parts of central and southern France were still underwater after intense rainfall flooded towns and motorways. The floods were described as the worst ever seen in the certain parts of the country. In many areas, authorities are working to pump away flood water while schools remained closed. The alert was downgraded to orange on Friday, indicating that water levels would come down again. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live, we show you how the migrants issue is in spotlight in US ahead of presidential elections. The sea phase of Malabar 2024 concludes in Visakhapatnam. Air quality drops to very poor category in Delhi. We will show you an exclusive report on the same. Stay tuned.
On Media Scan this weekend, how relevant are these exit polls for our electoral system, and do they serve any purpose at all?
The more and more these exit polls go wrong, the more and more media will have to think of, do we want to spend money broadcasting what these exit polls say?
People who are receiving are citizens, the media, stakeholders and political parties. They have a responsibility to take exit polls with a pinch of salt. And this time there was a problem. The Election Commission was being asked to explain, how can you give such result when exit poll said this? That's terrible.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Shifting focus to US. In an unexpected turn of events on the campaign trail, former US President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are clashing. This time, not over policies, but over each other's health. The two political figures have taken jabs at one another's well-being, raising questions about their fitness for office in the 2024 election.
What started as a typical exchange of policy disagreements has now taken a personal turn between Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump as they battled through the battleground state of Michigan on Friday. Presidential candidates Donald Trump and Kamala Harris exchanged sharp criticisms over each other's ability to lead the country during visits to Michigan. While Trump was in Detroit, Michigan's largest city, U.S. former president called Vice President Kamala Harris not a smart person and insisted that she is unfit to represent the nation.
Tell me when you've seen me take even a little bit of a risk. Not only am I'm not even tired. I'm really exhilarated. You know why? We're killing her in the polls because the American people don't want her. She didn't pass her bar exam. She's not a smart person. She's not a person that should represent our country. So I just want to let you know that very clearly. Go ahead.
Vice President Kamala Harris swiftly responded, turning the tables on Donald Trump. During an event in Grand Rapids, the heart of more conservative Western Michigan, she mocked Donald Trump for avoiding debates and cancelling interviews, citing his campaign's claim that he's exhausted.
You know, I've been hearing reports that his team at least is saying he's suffering from exhaustion. And that's apparently the excuse for why he's not doing interviews. And of course, he's not doing the CNN town hall. He refuses to do another debate. And, you know, look, being president of the United States is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world. And so we really do need to ask if he's exhausted being on the campaign trail. Is he fit to do the job? And I think that's a question that is an open-ended question that he needs to answer.
Supporting Kamala Harris, former US President Barack Obama also campaigned in Tucson on Friday. Questioning former President Donald Trump's age and fitness as an older loonier, Obama also called Trump's 2.5-hour speeches gibberish.
There is also a question of his competence. Have you seen him lately? I mean, he is out there, he's given 2.5-hour speeches, just word salads. You have no idea what he's talking about. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter. He's talking about this. He's talking about that. He held a town hall meeting where he just, let me explain, because I've done a lot of town hall meetings. The point of a town hall meeting is to take questions. He just decided, you know what, I'm going to stop taking questions.
As Trump and Harris continue to spar over their fitness for office, it is now clear that personal health is an issue in the 2024 race that had started with US President Joe Biden pulling out of the race. Both the sides are likely to use this as a weapon in their broader political campaigns ahead of the US elections. Bureau Report, DD India.
DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh tells us about the migrant crisis faced by the United States as the country is all set to elect its new president.
At the turn of the 20th century, some 14 million immigrants entered the United States through New York. Statue of Liberty was the reassuring sign that these people had reached the land of their dreams. For the anxious soul, this was the mother of exiles, a powerful symbol of hope. But this is 2024. America, the land of immigrants, is facing a problem that many call a migrant crisis. The United States has more international migrants than any other country in the world, with immigrants making up nearly 14% of the population in 2022. An estimate of undocumented population puts the number at 11 million people. New York alone accounts for some 200,000 migrants. Mexico has been the top country of origin for US immigrants.
Like many global cities that are the economic epicenter of a nation, we attract people that are looking for opportunity. And we've seen an influx of that in a volume and at a pace and in a short duration that is a historical high.
For decades, the US Congress has been unable to reach a consensus on how to handle immigration challenges, often leaving critical policy decisions to the courts and the executive branch. Earlier this year, during his visit to the US-Mexico border in Arizona, Republican presidential nominee and former US President Donald Trump criticized his opponent Kamala Harris as a lazy border czar while praising the wall that was built during his administration but was never completely finished.
Kamala Harris has defended her vice presidential record on immigration and blamed her Republican rival Donald Trump for killing a bipartisan bill aimed to address the crisis. Harris assured she would renew a push for comprehensive border legislation if elected to power. Many locate the problem not with the migrants, but the system that alienates them.
The migrant crisis is a misnomer. We don't have a crisis of migrants, we have a crisis of systems to integrate the new people who are coming in here. Most are coming legally as asylum seekers, that has always been a benefit to this country. Others are coming seeking work and opportunity. This country was built on that.
While voters in the US decide who will occupy the most powerful office in the world, the fate of the most vulnerable section of the population hangs in balance. With camera person Jaishankar Singaravelu, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in New York.
All right, DD India correspondent Amrit Pal Singh is joining us from San Francisco. Amrit, just 3 weeks remain until the US polls, and both candidates are going all out to win over voters, especially in the battleground states. Make sense of the strategies of both candidates as the end game begins, Amrit?
Well, the contest is really close. It is neck and neck in most states, especially the battleground states. The latest polls give Donald Trump a slight edge over Kamala Harris, but if you factor in the the margin of error, then this could completely go awry, and it could go either way. So it is both candidates. That's why are campaigning hard in the battleground states. They were in Michigan. Both candidates were in Michigan on Friday and trying to campaign for themselves, and of course trading personal charges. Kamala Harris raising the question of physical fitness of Donald Trump. She's bound to do that because that's what Trump did to Biden, 81-year-old Biden. Now Trump himself is 78, Kamala turned 60, so she has the age advantage. So she rigged up the issue of him skipping some interviews after there were newspaper reports that he had to skip interviews because he was tired and exhausted. Trump retorted back saying that no, I'm not exhausted at all. I haven't taken rest for 48 days now, and I am exhilarated. So clearly the close contest is the reason why they're trying to campaign hard in these states. Michigan, for example, has 15 votes of the Electoral College, so it could prove significant. That's why we saw the kind of campaigning and wooing the voters. He trying to reach out to the Arab Americans who form a considerable population in Michigan, saying that peace in West Asia or Middle East needs to be brought in fast, accusing the Biden administration of messing it up there. So clearly reaching out to the Arab American voters. In fact, the mayor of Detroit, who's a Muslim mayor, praised Donald Trump for his policies. So both candidates are doing that, yes.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Amrit Pal Singh, for your analysis. And the sea phase of Malabar 2024 concluded on October 18 in Visakhapatnam, showcasing advanced maritime exercises involving warships, helicopters and aircraft. Key activities included surface weapon firings, air defense drills and anti-submarine warfare operations. This phase highlighted the commitment of participating nations to enhance collaboration in addressing complex maritime security challenges. The event wrapped up with a closing ceremony, facilitating valuable exchanges of operational insights and best practices among the navies involved. A thick layer of smog covered Delhi on Saturday morning as the city's air quality dropped to very poor levels in several areas, according to data from Central Pollution Control Board. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya sent us this report. Have a look.
Delhi woke up to a hazy morning on Saturday as smog covered the city, with the air quality falling into the very poor category. The Air Quality Index, or the AQI, has dropped to 270 in the national capital and crossed the 400 mark in Anand Vihar area. According to the Central Pollution Control Board, the AQI level is in the very poor range and poses a serious risk, especially to vulnerable groups, increasing the likelihood of respiratory issues with prolonged exposures. Now let's give you an idea on how the AQI level range. It is starting from the 0 to 50, which is in the very good category. Then it is from 51 to 100, it's a satisfactory category. Now from 101 to 200, it's in the moderate category. From 201 to 300, it's in the poor category. And from 300 to 400, it's in a very poor category. Now if we go further, 400 to 500, it is in the severe category. These are the categories through which the AQI level is measured, and that's something that the Central Pollution Control Board keeps in mind. Now, going further, we realize that the meteorologists predict that these conditions will persist in the coming days, with the air quality likely to remain in the very poor category all throughout. Meanwhile, the Yamuna River is covered in thick layer of white foam, yes, you can see right behind me, raising the health concern, especially as Diwali and the Chhath Puja approaches. The foam contains high level of ammonia and phosphates and can cause respiratory and skin issues. Now, going further, we realize that it's not going to change easily. There is a lot of problem that will come with this kind of persistent exposure to pollution. This foam typically forms when pollutants mix with decaying plant matter, but its presence during the monsoon is unusual. The lack of flood waters to wash away the contaminants is contributing to the problem, alongside stagnant wind that traps pollutants, worsening the situation further in the National Capital Territory. With Prasar Bharati, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
Building on India's neighbourhood first policy and Sagar outlook, Indian Navy's ship INS Kalpeni has arrived at Colombo on Saturday. The ship is on port call until 21st of October under an operation turnaround. The ship has brought in essential technical support tools which will be handed over to Sri Lanka Navy. In addition to taking in replenishment, the ship's crew will visit places of importance in and around Colombo. INS Kalpeni is a Car Nicobar class waterjet fast attack craft of the Indian Navy commissioned in 2010. The ship is named after Kalpeni Island in the Lakshadweep group of islands. That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.